So let me share with you a true story. It's on the lowest level, but you'll see one using it wisely, outsmarting all the so-called wise ones who surrounded him. This is my brother Victor. The year is 1939, and my brother Victor sensed the coming of war. He's a businessman in many, many businesses. He's also a ship chandler, where ships, blank space, in certain shipping lines. Well, it's an international agreement. When a ship comes into port, they may have anything that you have and pay for it out of pocket. It never pays taxes on the products it buys. If it's a cigarette, or if it's a bottle of liquor, or if it's a ton of merchandise, if they need it and you have the supply, you supply the ships, but it's duty free. You make a profit on your product, but you cannot ask him to pay the duty. Therefore, you too are free of paying duty. Well, being a ship chandler and carrying stores for ships and sensing the coming of war, he went to his bankers and raised about $1 million, about $1.5 million in excess of what he always carries in overdraft. That was for the local trade. This was to put in ships' stores for incoming ships. He knew in his heart that not one ship is going to come to Barbados when the war breaks, because England couldn't build ships fast enough, but what the Germans sank, because England couldn't build ships fast enough, but what the Germans sank the ships. So they'd be an isolated island, and they would have to simply survive by its own efforts, living on fish and breadfruit and sweet potatoes and whatever they could grow. But certainly not the lovely things we brought in from America, Canada, and Europe. So he took advantage of that interval of time as the calendar turned into 1939. And he raised this money. He rented all the space he could possibly find, plus his own warehouses, and filled it to the gunnels with all of the merchandise in the world that he knew that the people locally would want as the war progressed. And he saw it as a long war. His imagination was at work. Well, on the first day of September 1939, England declared war on Germany. 2 years later, we were not yet at war. England was at war. 2 years later, not one passenger ship, save American ships, came in, and they certainly didn't need anything from Barbados. They sailed from New York, and they were in Barbados in 5 days, and they sailed out of New York Harbor with everything they needed for the entire round trip of 38 days into the Argentine and back into New York. So he didn't sell them 1 pound of butter. He knew it, but he carried this enormous amount of merchandise. 2 years later, he went to the government. Mind you, when you borrow $1.5 million, you are carrying very, very high interest rates. It's not just a few pennies, and the bank demands that interest when due, and you still owe principal. So he went to the government and explained the facts of life, that he had waiting for ships, this enormous amount of merchandise, and there aren't any ships. The government said, "What do you propose to do about it?" Oh, he said, I would like the duty paid and sell it locally with the merchants. Yes, I will share it with the merchants. They can have their share of it. I'll take my share of it, and we'll simply let the people in the island enjoy it. There it sits unused for 2 years. The government said to him, I will call upon him with the merchants and discuss it with them. The merchants went to Government House, and they heard the story, and they all rejoiced. They said, "No, we have him exactly where we want him. He's frozen, and so we'll push him right out of blank space. He's our worst competitor. He's the biggest taxpayer. He can raise this money, and now we really have him where we want him. He's frozen." They gave their final verdict. No is the answer to his request. The government then called my brother, asked him to come to Government House, and he told the story that I've just told to you. And my brother reminded him that the taxpayers paid his salary, meaning the government. He said, "We pay your salary and your upkeep. The crown appoints you. You weren't elected. The crown appointed you for 4 years. But we, the Barbadian taxpayers, pay your salary, and you know it's a very big salary. It's a plum for everyone who has served the crown for a long spell of time. when they're just about to retire, they give them Barbados or Trinidad or Jamaica as a little, I would say, reward. So they can save every penny for those 4 years, go back to England and retire and have a wonderful nest egg. But the local man pays that salary. So my brother reminded him who pays his salary. Well, he didn't like that. So he said, "Nevertheless, I'll give you my final word, Goddard. No is the answer. You bought it for ships, and for ships it remains." Then my brother said to him, "Is that your real final word? Final word?" "Yes, Goddard," he said. "Well, I have given you your last chance." He said, "Goddard, do you realize you're speaking to the government?" He said, "Yes, Your Excellency," and departed. He went to his office. He said, "Bring me my lawyers." He asked the lawyer to give him a legal definition of a ship. Just a legal definition of a ship. I know you think of a huge, big ocean liner, but I want a legal definition that will stand up in court. Would a rowboat be called a ship? Don't we find lifeboats coming in here with passengers after a ship has sunk? Didn't they make it here on a rowboat? Yes, that's right. He put the words into their mouths to define a ship. A rowboat, a fishing boat, a motorboat, that's a ship. If a man gets on it, if he has courage, does he really feel there's, excuse me, if a man gets on it, if he has courage, does he really feel there's a reasonable hope he could reach another island 100 miles away? Yes. All right, then that's the definition of a ship. Thank you, gentlemen. Then he called his publicity department. He said, "I want a full-page ad tomorrow. I want you to define a ship for me at the very top of the page. And then itemize these things for me. All these are for sale duty-free. Anyone who owns a boat, a little rowboat, a little ship, he is eligible. But you must have a boat." Well, when it broke the next morning, the government saw $600,000 flying through the window in taxes. The merchants saw all this money flying out of their pockets and they went up in arms! Exclamation point. They tried to get him on the wire. The secretary would answer and say, "I cannot locate Mr. Goddard. He's not available today, so busy." Well, in 48 hours, he didn't have 1 pound of butter left to sell. Excuse me. Sold everything in the blank space for cash, no credit. He said, "You bring your money, you can get it for cash and don't pay duties." They rowed out of sight, turned around the bend, came back ashore, and sold it to the people. The people who bought it, who came to the dock on a boat, bought it duty-free, rowed out of sight, came back to the shore, and sold it to the people. They were all waiting for it. To this day, the merchants don't cross him anymore. The lesson is, don't F with the Goddards. That's using your imagination. You call that, well, that's a dishonest, unrighteous steward thing. Yes, the Bible tells you he was a dishonest, unrighteous steward. But at least one person could use his imagination and overcome that mountainous opposition of all the merchants, plus the government. He was playing to the majority, not to the biggest taxpayer, but to the majority. And so he simply circumvented all of them. Sold everything in the warehouse and came out with a fortune in 48 hours. That's the lowest level. But he first used his imagination.